A lot of football today, obviously. I've only been in this business, like radio business, like 15 years. Best time of the year, football season Fridays. I'm driving to work. I'm like, let's see. Going to break down the PGA Championship. Nah. U.S. Open tennis. Probably not. That was a good match last night, though, but sorry. It's a Friday. It's football season. So this morning, everybody's like, has kind of the same takeaway, right? Oh, you can't beat Seattle. Woo! Especially at home. Well, actually, yeah, you can. Arizona did it. The story for me last night, the takeaway for me is Green Bay. The last 6 times they've faced San Francisco and Seattle, the 2 best rosters in this league, they're 0-6. And in 4 of those 6 games, they have been housed. 30, 45, 34, 36 points. And these are not high-powered offenses. A couple times they've been reasonably competitive. Lost to Seattle once 14-12. But Green Bay's defense, you just watched that game last night. You take out Clay Matthews, they don't have a lot of guys that can start for Seattle. It's the old eyeball test. They've got plenty of guys. They're all on offense. I like Lacy. I like Aaron. I like Jordy Nelson. I like a lot of players I like. You look at Seattle's defense and you look at Green Bay's defense, take out Clay Matthews. How many guys start for Green Bay on Seattle? How about we start at 1 and go down? That's about it. So if Green Bay thinks they're a Super Bowl team, if you think you're a Super Bowl team in the NFC, in the AFC it's different. You don't have to have a great defense. New England got to the AFC Championship and their best defensive players were all hurt. But the NFC is better than the AFC. And right now the 2 best rosters are Seattle and San Francisco. That is not, let's stop wasting our time arguing about that. Those are the 2 best rosters. That division's great. Those rosters are sick. And Seattle's is the sickest. Because unlike San Francisco, half of it's not suspended. Okay, you can beat Seattle. Arizona did last year. San Francisco can. But you have to bring a major defense to the table, and Green Bay just doesn't have the personnel. And you can solve a lot of issues during a season. You can't solve personnel issues. If you just don't have the guys, you don't have the guys. And the second takeaway I have from last night is, in professional sports, especially the NFL's got a salary cap, you've got these brief windows to be great. Now, in the NFL, if you have a great quarterback, it extends the window. But of the 10 best teams in the league right now, Seattle, San Francisco, no order, Green Bay, Baltimore, Indy, Denver, Chicago. There's only one team, Seattle, that pays their quarterback nothing. That's not a slight advantage for Seattle. It's a humongous advantage. Because what Pete Carroll's done is half the stars on this team don't make any money yet. And especially the quarterback. Philadelphia is the only other team in the league that doesn't pay their quarterback anything, but he's super productive. And so Seattle can go out and massively overspend for Percy Harvin. And by the way, that offense is not the same without Percy Harvin. He goes down, that offense is not the same in Seattle. But Percy Harvin, they can massively overpay for him. He never plays. Doesn't matter. Until Russell gets paid in a year. Cliff Averill. Remember when he came off the books from Detroit? Everybody's like, ooh, that's expensive. Seattle's like, yeah, here you go, $7 million. Just for a guy that does one thing. They can do that. Seattle can take Bruce Irvin in the draft and kind of roll the dice on a pass rusher. When you get in that tiny window of the NFL, and it doesn't happen very often, that you get a quarterback out of the first round, even a second, third round guy, and you don't have to pay him anything for 4 years, that is because look at what the Giants are paying Eli and getting out of him. I mean, go down the list. Flacco, Matt Ryan, Jay Cutler, Aaron Rodgers, Big Ben. You're paying 30, 20, 15, 18. Russell Wilson's minimum wage. So Seattle can put 2 or 3 guys on that defense, a big star on the offense nobody else can afford. They're overpaying for Harvin, overpaying for Cliff Averill. Doesn't matter. So, but again, my takeaway is it's not just about Seattle. You can beat Seattle, but you can't with Green Bay's defense. You're not beating that team with Green Bay's defense. It's just not, their personnel's not good enough. And boy, Seattle, and it's really interesting when, the NFL has got it kicked. Like the energy at NFL games is last night, I'm bouncing around the TV during a commercial break, and Baltimore, first place in the American League East. Orioles are good. Home game. Nobody there. No energy. Just the energy on TV last night. Let's briefly play the ratings game. Won't take a lot of time on this. But the NFL, when you turn the television on, The energy is so much greater than everything else on right now. I'm going to guess Green Bay, Seattle got a 12.8. 13.4. You got to be kidding me. 14.3? Higher? It's a Thursday night. 15.7. Higher? 17.1. All right, what is it? 60. What was the pregame? The pregame show. Think about this. The pregame show for the game last night got a 14.5. That will double virtually every World Series game for a pregame show. Nothing against Josh Elliott's hair, but Josh Elliott's hair will beat the World Series. I mean, double it. Yeah, just when you turn on the television and that crowd and the people and the nuts and the noise of Pete Carroll and the Seahawks, it was just great. So I saw this story this morning, and I knew the reaction was going to be. Both Stephen A. Smith and Peter King report, and I'm tired of the Michael Sam story too, people. Believe me, they handed me this morning. I'm over it too. I want to talk football. Blazing 5 in about an hour and a half. So Michael Sam, the NFL, according to Peter King and Stephen A. Smith, the NFL called teams and just said, hey, we just like to kind of suggest, do you have an opening on the practice team? Just on the practice team. They didn't demand it. They didn't say you had to hire him, but they said, yeah, we're kind of checking around the league. And this story, you've already decided what side you're on this. Once again, just like the Redskins, it's become now a political story. If you're a social conservative, this is terrible what they did. If you're a social liberal, you're like, this is okay. Can I just say this? The world of professional sports has always had social movements. The Rooney Rule, which the NFL absolutely needs, forcing teams to interview certain people. The NBA had a dress code. Why? For image. Excuse me, the Yankees don't allow facial hair. It doesn't look good. Teams, leagues, commissioners have always had agendas and movements trying to be progressive, ahead of the curve. Why should I be bothered by this? For all you guys who are like, hey, he didn't earn his way. Funny. Every guy I've ever met brags about his connections. Hey, I can get you tea time. I know the pro. Hey, I'll take care of that speeding ticket. I know a cop. Hey, I got a good line in a football game. I know a guy who knows a guy. So you love all the advantages of a phone call or access. So Michael Sam maybe got one. I worked in local TV for 14 years. Every single general manager, every single boss I ever had would come into my office at some point. I had a little sports desk. He'd come to it at some point in my stay there. Here's a resume. I know his dad. Could I just suggest you? Didn't force me to like the NFL. Didn't demand I had to hire, but I had to do an interview. I had to look over the budget. Because somebody knew somebody. I'm not sure how many of you know this. Maybe not many. But for years in the NFL, everybody had a number 3 quarterback. Most teams don't now. The Patriots just got rid of Ryan Mallett because they want to keep 2. But for years and years and years and years and years in the NFL, decades and decades and decades, every team carried a 3rd quarterback. You know what the number 3 quarterback in the NFL was known as? The who do you know position in professional sports. You just took a guy who knew a guy who knew a guy who was taking care of the vice president. That's what the position was. Because the 3rd quarterback, I don't think Vince Evans played for about 15 years for the Raiders. That's what the position was. That's why coaches have their sons on staffs. The number 3 quarterback position in the NFL for 40 years was, we know a guy, we know a college guy, and it was kind of greasing palms and taking care of people. By the way, that's how American lobbyists work in the White House. Here's a $15 million check. Cut down some trees. You don't love nature that much anyway. You can't get anything done at ESPN. If there's an opening here, who do we call first? Syracuse. Hey, Stanzik, where did you go to college? You're certainly not qualified, but you're on this amazing show. Where did you go to school?
Believe it or not, I actually didn't go to Syracuse. I was born and raised in Syracuse.
Okay. Yeah.
I went to Fairfield University.
Okay, Fairfield, which, by the way, is what? In Connecticut?
Yeah, it's about a block away.
That's funny.
Yeah.
We hire people from Connecticut. Why? Penn State, Syracuse, Fairfield. Are they the most qualified? Well, Stanzik certainly isn't.
Sure.
But the truth is, who do you know? You make a call. You don't demand, you suggest. That's how America works. It has always worked. So I'm supposed to be outraged because the NFL called NFL teams and said, hey, you guys got a spot in the practice squad. So what? That's how you got your tea time, out of a speeding ticket. Ever called a frat buddy to get an interview somewhere? Hell yeah! That's the world. So what? Non-story. I didn't go. Now, I'm an exception. I got just this job out of raw talent. I didn't go to frats. This is just this voice, this nose, this beaker right here got me this gig. Amazing.